listening to the Crosscheck NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark.
Hello and welcome to the Crosscheck NHL Show. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We're free and available on all platforms, now including YouTube. My name is Mary Clark, staff writer for The Win, and you can follow me on Twitter at Mary C. Clark. I'm here with Andrew Berkshire, NHL analyst for the Montreal Gazette and host of Game Over Montreal on the SDPN. You can follow on Twitter at Andrew Berkshire. On this Friday edition of the Crosscheck, the series between the Maple Leafs and Lightning has yet to disappoint, as the series is tied up 1-1 going to Tampa. We'll also discuss the Predators getting absolutely pulverized in their opening game to the Avalanche and the chaos of the Rangers and Penguins series. But unfortunately, we have to touch on an uncomfortable topic as Mike Ribeiro has been charged with sexual assault yet again. So, Andrew, before we start off today's show, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Busy day. We're recording late because I had to run to Costco in between podcasts. So I've got chicken in my teeth, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those weird shows. Obviously, when we talk about the Ribeiro stuff, it'll probably be a bit more, calm. But I can feel the little chaotic energy here today, Andrew. Maybe it's because we're recording on Thursday, so it's technically my Friday. So after this, I have work, and then it's I'm relaxing. I'm gonna go see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on Friday morning. So we're both gonna be seeing it. So definitely a little bit of chaotic energy, but also because the playoffs have started, Andrew. We've gotten some really good nights of playoff hockey, and that's we're going to spend most of this episode talking about it. Unfortunately, since we are recording on Thursday, we are going to be missing the slate of games on Thursday nights. That's what the Panthers Cap series, Predators, Avalanche, Pens Rangers. Who's the
Stars Flames?
Stars Flames. Thank you. So we'll be missing those. We're going to talk though about the biggest stories. And so far, some series are proceeding how I thought, and some series are not. But we're going to talk at least first about the two series that have had some really interesting stuff happen. So it is the Maple Leafs and the Lightning, who are tied 1-1. The two games could not have been more opposite of one another in terms of vibes, I think, because the Maple Leafs won game 1 5-0, and everybody was convinced they were going to win the Stanley Cup. And then game 2 rolled around, and then the Lightning won, what was it, 5-3? 5-3. So
5-3.
Yeah, it's been a tale of two games. There was also a huge hit from Kyle Clifford that earned a suspension. So there's been a lot of chaos in this series, but definitely been one of the more fun ones to watch in terms of just, general atmosphere. I know game 1 was a blowout, but it was probably really fun if you were a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, just because it was a blowout in game 1, and you're like, this is a great way to start off. But things have been reined a little bit back in, and if you believe in the momentum thing, Tampa has all the momentum coming into game 3 because they tied the series up, and the series is going back to Tampa. How have you been enjoying this series so far, Andrew?
I've loved it. I feel like game 1 was especially great for Leafs fans because when you look at how the penalties were distributed, it felt, as a Leafs fan, I'm sure, like the fix was in, right? The Lightning just kept getting power play after power play after power play, a lot of chintzy calls, which frankly carried over into game 2 as well. But the Leafs penalty kill was outstanding. They had a 5-minute major on Clifford that they had to kill off in the first period that absolutely set the tone for the game. The Leafs not only killed that off, they severely outchanced the Lightning on that penalty kill. I believe they outshot them 3-0 on a 5-minute penalty kill, and all 3 of the Leafs shots were great scoring chances. And then on top of that, blow the Lightning out of the water and just make them look terrible in that game. Made Victor Hedman look like a fool at times. It was incredible, and the atmosphere at Scotiabank Arena was the best I've ever seen for a Leafs game, right? There's that combination of the first playoff game with fans in the building in 2 years, and they know that this team is so good that Mitch Marner finally gets the monkey off of his back in the playoffs, right? Scores his first playoff goal since 2019 which doesn't even like undersells how long it's been for him, because he scored in like game 1 against Boston that year and then went scoreless for essentially 3 playoffs straight. Absolutely incredible game. And then the next game, Tampa Bay shows, oh, we're not done yet.
Mhm.
You know, we're still the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in that one, they got the Leafs to play more of their game, and they mucked it up a little bit more after the whistles, and the Leafs were involved, and they kept on taking penalties. Wayne Simmons twice in the penalty box on bad penalties,
Mhm.
and then they score on both of them. So it's a tough situation for the Leafs from that respect. But I look at it as that was Tampa's response game. And yeah, they put up 5 goals. At one point it was 5-1. But
Mhm.
I don't feel like Tampa Bay dominated that game, especially from the outset. It was Vasilevsky who just kept them in it in the first period where the Leafs were dominating. And then the Leafs came back at the end and actually made it somewhat close.
Mhm.
So to me, I look at that, if you're looking from a Leafs perspective, Vasilevsky is undefeated in games coming off a loss in the playoffs for the last 2 years. He's been absolutely incredible, an absolute wall in those games. You still got 3 past him,
Mhm.
you know? So if that's Tampa Bay's best effort in this series, if I'm the Maple Leafs, I'm okay with that. You know, you bring Jason Spezza back in, you lean more into your skill than your toughness for a game, and you see how that goes. I think the Leafs are very, very much in control of this series.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it feels because like now they can like, have a little bit of a mental reset and be like, okay, Tampa got us to play their way in game 2. Now they can be like in game 3, you know, maybe not, fall into their shenanigans as much. Like I know like tempers get high and stuff like that, like on the ice. But I would like to think that maybe the Maple Leafs can, like rein it in just a little bit and try not to take as many dumb penalties because that was certainly a reason why they got into trouble in game 2. But man, Vasilevsky is such a good goaltender, and that stat about him not like being like having I don't know what the word is right now, but not losing basically coming off of a loss is incredible. One of like the most insane statistics. He's just a bonkers goaltender, and the Maple Leafs are still gonna have to bring their all against him, but it has to be encouraging, yeah, to get 3 goals on him, especially 2 kind of in like a garbage time almost like situation at the end. But that Kyle Clifford hit though, really kind of like almost set the tone in a negative way for the Maple Leafs, because it was 10 minutes in, less than that, really. It was just, it was not a great hit. It earned him a 1-game suspension. I think the only suspension we've had so far of these playoffs, if I'm correct. There have been other hits that have garnered some attention, but I believe they've only gotten fines.
Yeah, this is the only suspension so far, which is wild considering Jared Spurgeon tried to
Like,
break an ankle.
mhm.
Like,
And what did he get? Like did he get a minimum fine? I'm trying
yeah,
to
the
a
maximum
maximum.
allowable
Thank you.
fine,
Yes, thank you.
which
There we
in the
go.
playoffs I guess goes down to 2,500. But that, I mean, if we're gonna punish Kyle Clifford's hit, like that kind of hit that severely, I'm down with it. I am
Mhm.
here for it to the ends of the earth.
It
I'm
was
there for it. But you've
completely
got to be
unnecessary.
consistent. It
Yeah.
was completely unnecessary, but I will say I don't think it was nearly as dangerous as it looked. I
It
think
was
that
just hard.
it was a
It was a
hard hit
hard hit.
into the numbers, inexcusable, but getting a game misconduct, the NHL usually, especially at the beginning of a game, considers that a 1-game suspension.
Mhm.
So it's a 2-game suspension,
Yeah,
which,
technically.
and in the end, in the playoffs, they count 1 playoff game as 3 regular season games. So I look at it, I'm like, are you going to say that that's a 6-game suspension in
Mhm.
the regular season?
Yeah, it's
Mm,
I mean, we've talked a lot about NHL officiating. It just seems a weird one to, put your foot down on when you let the other one of the like basically chopping the guy's ankles, let that, go free with basically just a fine. So
yeah. I
it's
think
a
that Spurgeon move, that cross check into the ankle where
Mhm.
the knee and toe of the skate are down on the ice and you have space between where you could
Mhm.
snap their tib fib or
Yeah, yeah.
blow their ACL, break an
Mhm.
ankle. That's one of the most dangerous plays I've seen in like the last 5 seasons. And the fact
Mhm.
that they just did a fine there, I cannot believe that happened.
What did you think of the hit on who was it in the Hurricanes Bruins
Hampus
game?
Lindholm,
Hampus Lindholm. Yeah,
clean.
that Okay, yeah. So, but like he didn't return to that game, I believe.
Yeah,
And
apparently he's not doing
not
well.
doing well.
Yeah, it's
But that
sad,
was a
but
clean hit.
yeah.
So, we've seen some violence and like, just a lot of rough and tumble in these playoffs so far, but heading back to Tampa Bay, that series is 1-1. Do you want to change your prediction, Andrew? I mean, I still think this is going 7. This really feels like a long drawn out series, but do you want to change your prediction? Are you still, you still with the Maple Leafs here? I mean, it kind of sounds like you were, but I'm
Yeah.
going to give you a little bit of leeway here just in case. But,
I still think it's going to be Leafs in 6.
all right. So, that'll be really fun. So, we're not going to transition to our like next segment, but we are going to talk about the Predators, who got absolutely, demolished by
Yeah,
the
it was sad.
Avalanche. It was really
it hurt
sad.
to watch, honestly. That first period.
It was so bad.
We're laughing, but it's not that funny.
I know. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Predators lost, what was it, 7-1, something like that? It was
7-2.
7-2. Thank you. I had the score in the doc, and then when you moved the doc around, the score got lost, I think, or maybe I didn't put it in. But regardless, it was bad. I think it was 5-0 after the first period. Dave Rittich got pulled after like 15 minutes after letting in those 5 goals. It was a disaster for the Predators. There was so much. I retweeted a whole bunch of like gifs and stuff. Like I think David Rittich ran into his goalpost and fell over at one point. He was like way out of his net. Like it was chaotic and disastrous in the worst way. Obviously, things can change because we are talking about this game on Thursday, and the Predators play the Avalanche again Thursday night. So who knows what happens by the time you hear this next, but I would like to think that the Avalanche are going to continue to be dominant. Maybe not as dominant,
I
but
think we know what the end result is going to be.
yeah, I
mean,
do.
did they say who's starting yet? I don't think so.
No, I haven't seen it yet, but
I would assume that they're going to give Rittich another go because you can't, assume that that's going to happen twice in a row.
Mhm.
But also it could.
Yeah. I feel so bad. I really do. And like it's just we knew that like the Predators were one of those teams that was in like that, not to say they didn't belong in these playoffs, because they did. They won their games, they won their spot. Uh but there's a clear tier difference between them and a team like the Avalanche. You could not be, I think, further from each other in terms of like the tiers or like, the power levels basically of these two teams coming to the playoffs. And Saros' injury just made it all the worse. Like it, with UC Saros, they would have at least stood a chance in some of these games. It would have been closer. The Avs probably still would be the favorites here, but Saros has a tendency to steal games, and it's the playoffs. Goaltending can be voodoo, and you can get it's very possible that Saros could have done it.
Yes,
But
at least made the series go longer.
yeah,
And we talked about it, Mary, on our season preview episode, that it kind of sucks, and it's understandable. It's the way it has to be, but it kind of sucks that you have a team like Nashville that had no expectations heading in this year of making the playoffs from an outsider's perspective. Everyone pretty much expected them to be terrible, like in that mid-range of not making the playoffs, but not getting a lottery pick, with no prospects to look forward to. And then all of a sudden they have this fantastic season, career years all around, and they make the playoffs. And their reward is the Colorado friggin' Avalanche. And it's playing out like we thought.
yeah,
And it's sad to watch, but also I'm just like, okay, next round for them. Next round.
Yeah, this is, I mean, the Avalanche have, so I'm going to say if, because I don't want to disrespect Nashville too much here. I feel bad for kicking them while they're down. But, if the Avalanche win this series, who would their next opponent be? The winner of not Calgary, Dallas. What's the other Western Conference? Not
Edmonton. No, it's not Edmonton, LA.
Not Edmonton, LA.
Minnesota, St. Louis.
Minnesota, St. Louis. Oh man, that series has been good too so far. Between
another one that flipped back and forth. Just
yeah,
like the Leafs, right? Blowout for St. Louis in the first game, shutout, and then the next game, Kaprizov hat trick, Joel Eriksson hat trick that gets called back on an offside review. Can we end that garbage already?
At least end it for the playoffs. I know that's such a weird thing, but
People
come on,
threw
it's the
hats,
playoffs.
Mary,
Yeah, it's so
and then
sad.
it wasn't a hat trick.
It's so sad. It really is. But that series is tied up. I mean, Kings Oilers is tied up after the Mike Smith fiasco of game 1. He pitched a shutout in game 2, I believe, right? And
Yep.
they shellacked the Kings. I think it was 5-6-0, something like that.
6-0, yeah.
Yeah, 6-0. All right. Yeah. So there's been some back and forth series so far. We'll find out Thursday night if some teams take leads, like 2-0 leads, or if series get tied back up. But that'll at least do it for this section of playoff stuff. We're going to talk about Pens Rangers, because we might have a couple of feelings on that in a few segments from now. But sadly, we're gonna have to bring it down a little bit and talk about the news that came out that Mike Ribeiro was arrested on 2 counts of sexual assault, and that'll be coming up right after this.
Well, maybe say a content warning for all as well.
Yes, of course.
We said what it is, but also just in case you're only half listening, content warning.
Please, yes. Before I transition to my ad, please, you don't have to listen to this segment if you don't want to. We just wanted to bring it up because it's important to talk about. But please, skip to, I don't know, we're probably going to talk about this for 10-15 minutes. So please skip past that and you can continue on your playoff stuff. But that'll be coming up right after this. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so that you're fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. Have you tried Built Puffs yet? We're going crazy for the Puffs. They come in crazy flavors like banana cream pie and even churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro? And they're only 140 calories. Sign me up. If that's not enough flavor for you, then you want to try the Mix Box. The Mix Box comes with 12 flavors of bars and puffs. Built Bar makes sure that there's something for everyone. And you know what my flavor is? My favorite flavor is double chocolate, because you can never have enough chocolate in your life, honestly. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So go to Built.com to get all of your favorites: banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and so many more. They're all delicious. New flavors are coming out all the time. Check them out at Built.com. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thank you for making the Crosscheck NHL show your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Andrew, it feels weird transitioning out of ad reads and all of the fun playoff stuff to talk about some really unfortunate and sickening news, but we're going to do it. And again, if you missed the content warning, please, we're going to talk about sexual assault and things of that nature. So please, if you don't want to listen, you don't have to. Take care of yourself. Skip along to the next section.
Not to ruin it, but when you say things of that nature, I always think of Stephen A. Smith and the Crab Rangoon meme. Bring it up slightly before bringing it right back down.
I know. There's no real easy way to talk about this stuff, Andrew.
No.
There really isn't. But we're going to try and give it our best. So I believe on Wednesday is when this article came out that the Dallas Morning News reported that former NHL forward Mike Ribeiro was charged with 2 counts of sexual assault on April 13th, with the charges being filed in Franklin County, Texas. Going to go not into a whole lot of detail, but he allegedly sexually assaulted 2 women on June 23rd, 2021, using his finger in the assault of one woman and his sexual organ on the other. He was reportedly arrested on April 28th, 2022, and released on bond set at $200,000. So this is not the first time Ribeiro has been in sexual assault, or has been alleged of sexual assault. Because I believe in 2012 he was sued along with his wife for sexually assaulting the couple's then nanny. I believe the case was settled out of court, if I looked it up correctly. So yeah, this is another shameful thing in the world of hockey. When you linked this to me, Andrew, late last night, because I didn't see it earlier because I was busy. I was like, wait, he was already accused of sexual assault once, and I was right. It was the same person. He hasn't played in the NHL in a handful of years now, right? More than
Yes,
that.
yeah.
It's been some time since he's played in the NHL, but he last played, I believe, with the Predators. Maybe only them. I don't remember his full NHL career. But this sucks, Andrew. There's no real there's no real else way to say it. It is a shame, and I hope the women suing him get their justice, and it's just another blight upon the NHL, really.
Yeah.
Even if Ribeiro is a former NHL player, because I believe he retired, right? He
Yeah,
must have.
2017 was his last year.
Thank you. That feels like it's been forever ago. 2017 is just a completely other world for me right now. But yeah, I mean, even if that's the case, like, it's still quite a black mark on the NHL here.
Yeah, I think where I am with this is something that's been an issue with Ribeiro his entire career. And we only have two, I mean, I say only. Stupid that we have more than one where he isn't taken off the streets essentially, but we only have two documented cases of sexual assault from Mike Ribeiro, which are very clearly credible because the police just don't make arrests very well in these situations. And the other one, he clearly had to settle out of court to silence his former nanny. I highly doubt that she made anything up because this is a player, when he was with the Montreal Canadiens, had a reputation. And there was a lot of consternation back in like 2006 when he was traded away from the Montreal Canadiens to the Dallas Stars because they traded him at an enormous loss. It was a terrible, terrible trade. He went on to be, a pretty solid second line center for Dallas for a long time, whereas Yanni Niinema was the guy that the Canadiens got back, and he was a washed former top four defenseman. He was terrible. I don't think you can look at Mike Ribeiro's history and not realize that people knew. And that's why he was traded. Dallas knew. That's why he wasn't kept there, right? He went to the Washington Capitals for a year. He went to the Phoenix Coyotes for a year. Then he went to the Nashville Predators. By the time Nashville had signed him, I believe he was on the Phoenix Coyotes when the nanny stuff came out. Nashville knew. You cannot convince me that these teams who do their due diligence on players didn't know. I think the Canadiens knew, and that's part of why he was traded. Mm-hmm. We heard talk back in the day about like locker room rifts or whatever, but he was a known guy for this kind of stuff around Montreal in 2005, 2003, like his whole career, essentially. It's wild that the NHL just enables these types of people over and over and over again because they're good at hockey or decent at their jobs. Like we talked about Kyle Beach so many times, mm-hmm. and how his Predator was enabled over and over again by the Chicago Blackhawks, silenced. The Kyle Beach was silenced. The case was silenced for over a decade, mm-hmm. and then he goes and works with kids and ends up in jail. I hope Ribeiro ends up in jail, mm-hmm. in this situation. If he doesn't, obviously the only recourse for these two victims would be to sue him financially, which mm-hmm. if they do that, I hope they clean him out completely. But I'm honestly at a bit of a loss for how little the NHL gives a shit about this. Mm-hmm. And like, shame on every team that signed him, honestly, because I do not believe with the resources that NHL teams have at their disposal, maybe Phoenix because they have no money. We'll give them a pass on this one thing. The Nashville Predators had to know. I would assume the Washington Capitals also knew. I would assume the Dallas Stars knew, and that's why they were able to, do that deal for a player who would be about a point per game player for them for the next 5 or 6 years, for a player who was never going to be on the roster the next year anyway. Like, you don't get that good of a trade unless you know something's wrong. So I look back at this and I think of how many people were involved with Mike Ribeiro's career who are still in the league today. And it's probably an absolute ton of them.
Yeah. And I didn't even realize that, like, it's been so long since, we talked about him in terms of, like, the wider hockey community, because he hasn't been in the NHL for a long time. I'd completely forgotten that he had played over 1,000 NHL games. Maybe this is because he started his career in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I wasn't a big hockey fan back then. So, like, a lot of his, like, most of my memories, like, concerning him were when he was on the Predators for that very short period of time. So a lot of, like, his career kind of passed me by in terms of my hockey fandom. But I think if the Kyle Beach thing proved anything, is that NHL teams want to win at any costs. And
Yeah.
looking back at Ribeiro's history in terms of, like, his point production, he was a good hockey player, real good hockey player. Had 793 points in those 1,074 games. You know, uh, I mean, you said it about, when Montreal traded him, they traded him at a loss. So NHL teams want to win, and this is just at least the next documented case of them possibly ignoring things in order to get a good player. I mean, we saw it this year with Evander Kane, who's got a lot of things up in the air with him. There's we talked about the Evander Kane stuff, but the Oilers signed him, and now they're in the playoffs. I don't know how many points he has this year with the Oilers, but you've seen it. I hate to say it, we're probably going to continue seeing it even after all the Kyle Beach stuff. These NHL teams want to win, and there's not going to be any recourse for them outside of fans, going up in arms about it. I mean, I've known people who were Oilers fans, but are not anymore because of the Evander Kane stuff. So unless there's punishments for this kind of stuff, or mandates from the NHL about this kind of stuff, it's gonna keep happening unless teams take a stand and do what's right here. It's just hard to say that they will, because they haven't really done that. Well, we don't hear about that kind of stuff. You always hear about the negative stuff. You're not going to hear about that other, like, the kind of stuff where people, like, standing up for what is right and whatnot, unless it's a very special circumstance. It's just, it's a shame to talk about. It really is. And like I said, I hope those women get justice. And it is just another failure on the part of the NHL in terms of overall, how their, public perception, what their teams possibly knew about him during his career. So it is just a big old shame. And it sucks that we have to keep talking about this, but we're going to continue to have to, because it's not really going to stop in the NHL unless, they put up a united front to stop it. And
They have to keep their feet to the flames.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah. I mean, nobody's really giving Chicago a pass anymore. And probably not for a very, very, very long time. So it is, I mean, just, do your best to take care of yourselves, but, keep those in power accountable, all that stuff. But I think first and foremost, take care of yourselves, be good to each other, all that kind of stuff.
100%.
So, all right.
And if you see something as a man, I just have to say, if you see something, you have to say something. It doesn't have to be as egregious as sexual assault. It's when your friend makes a joke that is wrong, just say, hey, that's not cool. You know, you have to fight this behavior at every level, and it's not just hockey.
Yeah.
And it's so rare for guys to call each other out, even softly, for stuff that just is not okay. And the more we let it slide, the more behavior like this becomes enabled. It's not a slippery slope situation so much as a normalization situation. And people like this don't get to operate in society unless we accept it. And for too long, we've accepted it. So it's on men to figure this shit out.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it. All right. Again, with the weird transitions, I'm so sorry. It's never going to get any easier, but we're going to transition out of this topic and continue to talk about the NHL playoffs with the Penguins and the Rangers and first major overtime we've had of these playoffs. And that'll be coming up right after this. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting, stats, and sports info. Find out the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, NHL playoffs, and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, Andrew. So, shifting back into the playoffs now. Pens and Rangers went to triple overtime.
That game was awesome.
It was awesome. A handful of days ago, first game of that series, we got our longest overtime of the playoffs so far. It was a triple overtime affair between the Penguins and Rangers, and the Pens won 4-3. There's a lot of stuff happening in this game between Casey DeSmith going down with injury in what was it, the second overtime, and Louis Domingue coming in to the called off goal for goalie interference that would have put the Rangers up 4-3 and possibly ended the game in the late third, but that was called back on goalie interference. I guess we'll start there, Andrew, after you talk about how awesome this game was leading up to that point, because that was the first pivotal moment in this game in terms of got a lot of people talking. I mean, the Rangers took an early lead. I believe it was like 2-0, and then the Penguins battled back. The Rangers took a lead. Penguins battled back. It seems like the Rangers took a 4-3 lead, but it was called back for goaltender interference. Andrew, what say you on this topic?
Unfortunately, this game, I only got to start watching in overtime.
Ooh.
So I missed the goaltender interference call. I saw like one tweet about it that had images, and I was like, that doesn't show me anything. It didn't. I need to see a GIF or something. So I don't know if it was goaltender interference or not. I see that it's controversial, but I don't know.
It was one of those plays where no one knows what goalie interference is. It was called a goal on the ice. I understand why they changed it back, but it was also one of those plays where the Penguins defenseman kind of pushed, I don't remember who it was, to push the opposing player into Casey DeSmith a little bit. I think we should stop rewarding those types of goals and calling them for goalie interference, because it's a problem of your own making. If your own player kind of pushes the opposing player into your goaltender, it's kind of your fault. I get why they changed it, but it's one of those things where, can we stop rewarding that? Because it's really dumb when, defenseman or whomever is caught back on that play, gets their mistake rewarded, basically. Because I believe it was Brian Dumoulin that did it, and he was the one that had that really bad defensive play that kind of led to that possible goal that didn't happen. So, it's just one of those things where I was like, NHL, please figure out what goalie interference is so we can stop having this argument, right?
They're never going to do it. I mean, I saw goals called back this year where the same team pushed a guy into their own goaltender and they called it goaltender interference. And I've seen goals stand where a guy pushed a guy into their own goaltender. There doesn't seem to be any consistency whatsoever. I feel like we had more consistency last year, which is stupid because it shouldn't change year to year that much unless the rule changes. But this year has been absolutely wild. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there was one earlier this year where I watched a team where they pushed the player, yes, but they pushed him across the front of the crease, and the player like pivoted and jumped into the goalie, and they were like, oh, it's not goalie interference because he was pushed. It's like, but he was pushed that way, and he
Mhm.
went that way. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think what we want is just more consistency. The goalie interference has always been, or at least, more recently has been, no one knows. No one knows what goalie interference is.
Just a coin flip.
Yeah, it is. And it shouldn't be, especially in playoff games. But,
Yeah.
we get to that point, then we go to overtime, then
So good.
Casey DeSmith gets injured randomly. Suddenly, the game is stopped because there's no like major stoppages in overtime. It's commercial free. That's one of the best things about the playoff overtime is just it keeps going. But suddenly there's a stoppage, and Casey DeSmith is leaving the ice, and Louis Domingue is coming onto the ice, and it is pandemonium. And yet another Penguins goalie is injured. Looks like DeSmith is out for at least game 2. So by the time you guys hear this, you will know who has won game 2 because that is on Thursday night. But the Rangers, now have to face Louis Domingue in net, and weren't able to get a goal past him in overtime. And then the Penguins win 4-3. Did you see the quote from Louis Domingue afterward that he had some sort of like in
Yeah, spicy
between?
pork and broccoli.
Yeah, in between overtime periods because
He
you have
he
to keep
also
your energy up and stuff like that. He ate spicy pork and broccoli uh in between the first and second overtime,
Yep.
not knowing he was going to be called in. So now it's just kind of been a cute little thing that has transpired, and a neat little story basically from all this.
Yeah.
But go on.
He also didn't believe the refs when they
Yeah,
said that
yeah.
he was going in. He was like, "What are you talking about?" No.
Mhm.
It's like, no, you're going in now. It's your responsibility now. I find that absolutely wild to be called on absolutely cold. You've been standing or sitting for 4 hours because
Mhm.
he doesn't even get to sit on the bench,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He's sitting in the tunnel
Mhm.
for 4 hours, and then you go in cold and double overtime, and you make some big stops, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, he was great. I think it's a fantastic story for him. It's the second playoff game he's ever played in. Also came in relief the last time, and also made saves on every shot. So he is undefeated and unscored on in playoff hockey in his career, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it'd be really fun if he actually had a shutout against the Rangers in game 2.
It would be. Oh man.
The narrative would be
The narrative would
incredible.
be awesome, and it'd be typical Penguins because this always happens to them. They always seem to luck
The
into.
next Mark Donk, right?
Yeah,
But this
they
time he's a
always seem
goalie.
they always seem to luck into the most favorable outcomes, even though you would think they're unfavorable to them. They somehow luck into favorable outcomes. And I got into I was on Twitter. I was like, "This the Rangers are the luckiest team in the NHL, and you cannot tell me otherwise." After all their like runs in the playoffs and stuff like that, they have had things that should have torpedoed them, but for some reason they don't get torpedoed, and
You
other
mean
things
like when they
torpedo
killed
them.
Carey Price in 2015 or 2014?
Yeah, like it just things keep happening to them, and they're able to take advantage of it. I mean, this is still a good story. Lou Domingue is a cool guy, fun guy, seems like a nice dude. Awesome story. It really solidifies how vulnerable the goaltending has been this year, just in the NHL. I mean, Antti Raanta went down.
Yeah,
Uh,
Carolina's onto their third string
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Both teams that
Carolina.
entered the playoffs, well, I guess Nashville's there as well, but Nashville is also onto their third goaltender. They announced Connor Ingram is starting tonight. So
Ooh,
every team that came into the playoffs with their backup is now onto their third goalie, which
it's
is
scary.
insane
Yes, it's
and super
scary.
fun,
Mhm.
but bad for goalies. You don't want them
But
to get hurt.
Carolina is at least weathering the storm pretty well because they're up
Yes.
2-0 on
Ah,
Boston.
nice one. Nice
Uh-huh.
one, Mary.
Yeah. Your prediction isn't looking so hot because I think you had Boston, right?
I
In
did have
that series.
Boston.
They're not looking good at all in
I'm
this
going to call that
series.
one a reverse jinx because I don't like Boston. So
Fair enough. You, you can win either way, Andrew. You can win
there you
either way.
go.
Either your prediction is right or Boston loses, and you're happy either way. But yeah, it's been a tale of goaltenders in the playoffs so far in terms of just like bad luck, injuries, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Penguins do have a leg up on this series as of Thursday as we're recording. But they still got a long road ahead of them. They're going to have to be able to, like, Louis Domingue isn't going to be able to do it all on his own. He's going to have to get some support from his teammates. I mean, he's got a perfect playoff record and save percentage and all that, but I think the Rangers are going to realize that they have an opportunity here,
Oh, for sure.
especially because they're at home and then the series flips back to Pittsburgh. for the next two. So the Rangers have a real opportunity here. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think that's all in terms of like playoff hockey. Unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, I think we've kind of run through all of the major stories. We didn't really talk about the Flames because their first game was a 1-0.
Yeah, it was a boring game. But
Yeah.
last thing I wanted to mention on the Penguins Rangers series or game, the first game, was I saw a lot of people on Twitter talking about how like playoff overtime is actually terrible and it's just sloppy, and the only reason people like it is because it's like intense because the next goal wins. And I don't know what game those people were watching because it surely was not that game. That overtime was awesome. There were great scoring chances on both ends. Yeah, the players were tired and sloppy because that's what happens as part of the fun. But it's not like they were playing this like chess match defensive game. Like players were breaking through and getting good shots. It was really, really fun to watch. So I think kudos to those two teams for not playing that way and not trapping the hell out of it, because I think the game is trending in a good direction in terms of entertainment. And there are just certain people around this game that they don't want to believe that it's trending in the right way. So they just say things as if they're generally true, but don't apply to the moment. And I just like when people I respect say stuff like that and they're clearly not watching the game, I just like my respect drops, So definitely if you're going to comment on it and say something's boring, pay attention first.
Yeah, I get it. I think the only other series we didn't talk about is the Capitals are up 1-0 on the Panthers. That could very well change because, like I said, they are playing tonight, Thursday night. But as we're recording, that's a little bit of a shock.
Yes, it is.
But I don't think this Panthers defense or Panthers offense is going to be held down for that long. So we'll see. We'll see if they make a resurgence here. But Capitals at least surprising a little bit so far in the early goings. But I think that is all for our playoff talk. We're going to transition over to our pop culture stuff because we've got some Star Wars to talk about. I don't know what Andrew's bringing to the table. I think Marvel stuff. So we've got some cool stuff to talk about in our pop culture segment as we end off the week, and that'll be coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. RockAuto.com is a family business, serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at RockAuto.com are always reliably low and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us box so that they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Andrew. So pop culture stuff. I was bringing to the table the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer because we got a new trailer for that series. I know we talked, I think, the last time that they released a first look that were, sad it's on Tatooine because God, please get away from Tatooine. Please. I've had enough of seeing that same sand over and over again. But I don't know. Some of the shots in that trailer were visually gorgeous. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they try and differentiate this series a little bit. I mean, you've got, of course, the Darth Vader teaser, the Inquisitors, Sith lightsabers, Luke's foster dad, was his name Owen, calling out Obi-Wan Kenobi. We got a lot of good stuff. I'm really excited for that series, and that's coming out at the end of May. I don't know if you saw the full trailer, if you had any thoughts, but I'm really looking forward to this because I don't know. It's got some. I don't know. I know we, want to move away from the Skywalker stuff and Star Wars and stuff, but I think this is going to be good. I really hope it doesn't disappoint. What about you?
I don't mind if they do Skywalker saga stuff if it's good. I just want them to produce good content, and this looks really good.
It does.
I am really excited for it. I think the like building of Vader towards the end of this trailer, like we talked when they released the teaser before that they purposely didn't show Vader, and I love that. But now it's got like just the outlines of like
You
his
just
chest plate and his
Yeah,
arm
you just
coming on.
need
It's like
that
the
and the breath.
fear.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
just the yeah.
it's perfect, and I'm really excited to see Hayden Christensen reprise the role and be Darth Vader really for the first time, because he was only in it for a second as Vader in a terrible scene in Revenge
Mhm.
of the Sith. So really looking forward to it. I think the toxic section of Star Wars fandom is going to be so upset with how this series goes. Just based on what they look like they're doing, I think they actually are going to focus on the legacy of failure of the Jedi. And I feel like until maybe the last episode, we're not going to get much lightsaber action. Because if you watched Star Wars Rebels,
Mhm.
you will know that one of the main things that helped Kanan Jarrus hide essentially as a Jedi was he never really used his lightsaber, because they talked about how when the Empire was hunting down Jedi, like a lightsaber sent a signal to everyone who could see that's a Jedi, right? So people were like whispering, and it's like any dictatorship, right? They have a whisper network of people who rat on each other.
Mhm.
So it's that same thing with the Empire, is you would be found out and it'd be easier to find you. And you look at these trailers and you see Obi-Wan using blasters, right?
Mhm.
I think he's not going to use his lightsaber very much at all. And I feel
Yeah,
like the
the
people who just
only
want to see lightsaber fights are going to be upset until we get the rematch between him and Vader.
Yeah, the only lightsaber there is what I said, that Sith lightsaber that one of the
Yep.
Inquisitors is holding. I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but yeah, that's the only lightsaber you get. And I was like, this is cool because, we haven't gotten a lot of we've gotten a lot of Jedi stuff and lightsabers and whatnot. It's just nice to have the other side of it too. It's really great. Like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I hope it doesn't disappoint. I'm not going to be like, obviously I'm not part of the toxic Star Wars part of that fandom, but like I don't know. I want it to be good, and you're right. I just want good Star Wars content because there is, there's still a lot of like good stuff they can do overall with Star Wars, and I hope it delivers. But I think you're going to talk about Moon Knight next because
Oh,
that
right.
ended. If you haven't watched it, you don't have to talk about it, but or
No,
you
I
can bring
did.
something else to the table.
No, I did.
Surprise
I
me.
watched it. It was
Okay.
really good. Uh, just from the people who I know who have Middle Eastern descent, just seeing them on Twitter reacting to it, it just makes me really happy,
Mhm.
because there's a moment in this where one of the characters kind of they become like an avatar of a god, which is what Moon Knight is, right? That's how he
Mhm.
gets his powers. And there's a battle in Cairo, and
Mhm.
someone says, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" And she says, "Yes." And she saw like a bunch of people who are just like tear emojis, being like, "Oh my god, the
Aw,
representation!" And that's so
that
fantastic.
matters. It matters.
It
Yeah, it
does
does.
matter, and like throughout this series, I've just been so impressed by the direction and stylistic approach of the showrunner and main director Mohammed Diab, who is Egyptian. I've said it a couple times on this show. I think he's going to be like the next Marvel it person. I don't know if he's going to direct another series or a movie, but I think he's going to have a very big career in North America if he wants it. If he doesn't, obviously that's totally cool. If he wants to continue making movies in his home country, but I think he could be a big star. Like it's incredible. There's one scene where in episode 5 where it's like a very tense scene and there's like a metronome going extra slow in the background. And
Mhm.
every tick of the metronome, the camera angle changes.
Ooh.
And it just makes you really uneasy in seeing like uh how the character, like the main character, the protagonist feels in this moment of like he
Mhm.
can't figure out what's going on, where he's supposed to look. It's just so purposeful in its direction. I really, really like the series. It's also, if you're not a big Marvel person, like you haven't watched all the movies, there's almost zero connection whatsoever to the rest of the MCU in this. It's really a standalone thing. So if you want to just jump in, you can. You don't need to know anything about the MCU to enjoy this movie. Or not movie, sorry, series. It's really good. And I don't know where I'd rank it so far on like the shows that Marvel has done for Disney Plus, but just on like a gut reaction to what I've seen so far, I have it around where I had Loki, and I
Oh, wow.
really like Loki.
Yeah, so probably I would guess your top 3, because I would assume WandaVision
Yeah.
is first,
Yeah,
then Loki,
WandaVision, then Loki,
then
and then,
Moon Knight.
like, whether Moon Knight is better than Loki, I think it could be.
Yeah.
Because Loki, I came into with an attachment already to
Mhm.
Tom Hiddleston as Loki, right? So you already care about that character. And this is just, it's such a different series. That's what I love about what Marvel's doing right now, is things are so different. Like
Mhm.
Loki was very Doctor Who,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that kind of style, and it changed Loki's character completely. WandaVision was an ode to like the history of television, which is so cool, and also again an intense
Mhm.
character development story. This again, very intense character study of Mark Spector, Stephen Grant. It's really really good. I think that there will be some maybe who criticize that again it ends in like a fight between good guy and bad guy. Like, I remember a lot of people saying like, "Oh, I can't believe WandaVision did all that," and then it ended up being like a Marvel fight. Like, guys, it's still
It's still
superheroes.
Marvel. It's still
Like, yeah,
superheroes.
it's
Come
still
on.
superheroes. It's always gonna end with that. It just is.
It's like going into a JRPG and being like, "Man, they fight God again at the end. Come on." Like, you know what you're signing up for when you get into these genres. Like, it's the
What do you
same.
mean the final boss has 3 final forms
Yeah,
again?
why is he shirtless? What's happening? You know what you're getting into with these type of things.
What do you
Like,
mean I
so
finished the game with 99 elixirs and never used one because I was saving them for that time that I was gonna need them for
Mhm.
sure?
Exactly, exactly. I'm so glad we're on the same wavelength here. But no,
You're
exactly.
also a hoarder of materials in
Yeah,
RPGs? Yeah.
of course. Who
Who
isn't
uses them?
who isn't a hoarder of materials in video games, especially RPGs or JRPGs? Who isn't really?
So true.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up, Andrew? Because it seems like you didn't want to talk about Moon Knight until I just jogged your memory. So,
No, it's that I'm so excited for Doctor Strange tomorrow that
uh,
I, like, forgot that I'd watched Moon Knight, and I've just been so busy this morning that, I just my thoughts have not been organized.
oh, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, yeah, we're very excited for Doctor Strange. That's gonna be awesome. My other thing is Overwatch League is back. I've talked about it before. I sometimes occasionally play Overwatch. I used to play it more, but there's a whole bunch of stuff with Activision Blizzard that sucks. But I do like the Overwatch League, and it is our first look at a lot of people playing Overwatch 2, which changes a lot of the game and stuff like that. So I Activision Blizzard sucks, but I still enjoy watching professional Overwatch because they are much better than me. It is just fascinating to me to watch, and that starts today. And it's just, I don't know, it's esports and stuff like that. So, but I think that's it. Next time though, we're gonna have, I think, a big spoiler fest talk about Doctor Strange. So if that's okay with you, Andrew,
Yep.
I figured you'd be down for that because you're so excited. But yeah, so just be on the lookout for that next week. We'll definitely spoiler warning that for you if you don't want to be spoiled. So, but you can always come back later and watch it. But that's all we have for you today on the Crosscheck NHL show. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure to follow us on your podcast platform of choice, from Apple to Odyssey to Spotify and YouTube, and rate and review us while you're at it. You can follow the pod at Crosscheck NHL on Twitter, me at Mary C. Clark on Twitter, and Andrew at Andrew Berkshire on Twitter. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We'll be back on Tuesday with some more puck talk, but now make your second listen Locked On NHL. From first round matchups to each Stanley Cup kiss, Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from your local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.